Monday edition of The Handle here on VSiN and DraftKings Network. Matt Brown, Mike Summich coming to you, as always, proudly brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. And then there were two. Mike, we played down the Final Four yesterday, and I know you were on NC State in the early game, but I think you're kind of come away with that with the same thing that I did, was just there just wasn't enough firepower on that team. They just didn't have enough to get it done. And you know, it's fine. It was a good run by that team. I don't think it was a bad handicap by anybody that was on the NC State side of things. It's just, at the end of the day, sometimes teams are just too powerful for other teams. And I think that's just what we saw yesterday. We were correct in thinking that they weren't going to go Burns on Edey very often, which they didn't do, and they were trying to mix it up and get other guys in there on him, though the fact that Edey did guard Burns on the other end didn't make things easy for Burns. And so, you know, when it's all said and done, 13-point victory for Purdue over NC State. And I think anyone just looks at the game and said, yeah, the better team won. The better team won by a lot, and it just kind of is what it is, and you move on.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, the offense just was never able to really get going for NC State. They were playing catch-up the whole game, and when you're a 9.5-point dog, the last thing you want to do is be down by, 7 to 10 points the majority of the first half, and then you're down 12 to 15 the majority of the second half. When you don't have that offensive firepower, when you don't have multiple three-point shooters, when you don't have multiple go-to guys, it's just very difficult to be able to make a comeback. They were settling for a lot of mid-range jumpers. It's not easy to come back when you're down 7 to 10 to 12 points when you're shooting long twos. You need to be either dunking the basketball, laying it up, or nailing threes. That's how you make those comebacks. NC State not able to get those shots. And like you said, a great run for them. Just ran into a better team yesterday.
And for what it's worth, I thought Middlebrooks for sure. Diarra had a little bit of trouble with Edey. I thought Middlebrooks did pretty well in guarding him, and certainly in the first half was able to kind of limit what Edey was able to do. But it's a good Purdue team. It's a team that obviously was better than NC State. They made some adjustments there in the second half, and at that point, once we got into the second half, you kind of just started to see it, right? It looked like Edey was a little bit more confident. It looked like he was a little bit quicker to the basket. He was a little bit slow at first in the first half, and they were able to really prevent what he was able to do, but they made the necessary adjustments, and I think that they guarded him fairly well, all things considered.
Yeah, I thought it was a good performance from NC State out on the defensive end. I don't think Edey dominated the game. I felt like he was, they had control of him for the majority of the time. You didn't see them have to send as many doubles and triples down as we've seen in other rounds. The whistle was in NC State's favor, so everything kind of played out in that style. They just weren't good enough on the offensive end. And the key moment in this game, we have a 6-point game at half. They come out 4-4 in the second half, and then they give up a 10-0 run to Purdue. And that was the moment where you're just like, oh, it's going to be tough to be able to come back and get this back inside single digits to cover the number. But don't mind the handicap, one of those games where you just kind of say, yep, all right, lost that one, move on.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. It was, to me, just one of those games in which the better team won, and we just kind of move on. It was what it was. Now, the second game, Alabama and UConn, I thought our handicap in this one certainly played out into the first half, and maybe even, several minutes into the second half, which was as long as Alabama could shoot the ball from outside of the arc and make a decent percentage of those, they were going to be able to be in this game. And that was certainly the case in the first half, and for the better part of the second half as well. All said and done, not only does UConn win, they cover, they get to 14. Some of those alt numbers that we started mentioning would have hit as well if you'd have played any of those alt numbers on UConn. I don't know if the final score is necessarily indicative of how this game went overall, but, Mike, we said it. It's just UConn has been a machine. It's been a truck, and they just did, again, as soon as Alabama let off the gas just a tad, it became a run out.
Well, and that was the problem for this Alabama team, is that they had to just outscore everybody. The defensive side was always a weakness for Alabama. And you mentioned they shot very well from three. They shot 47.8% from three-point range. I was shocked they only took 23 of them, Matt. I thought UConn did a very good job of running them off the three-point line and kind of gave up some easy buckets inside because of that. But I thought that was a very smart strategy from the UConn coaching staff. Hey, we're not going to let you shoot 40 to 53s. We're going to force you to go 2 at a time versus go 3 at a time. And, they shot really well. If you told me before the game, Alabama's going to shoot 47.8% from 3, I like the over and I like Bama. And they shot 47.8% from 3, and it went under, and it was UConn. So interesting how UConn decided to defend that 3-point line and be able to force Bama to go for more of the 2-pointers. And that's what kept the game under and allowed them to cover.
Yeah, it was, listen, they made 8 of those 11 in the first half, just weren't able to get off as many in the second half, certainly weren't able to make as many in the second half was the big change in the game. And no game ever comes down to one shot, Mike. No game ever comes down to one shot. But we are sitting 58-56. UConn is in the lead with 11:51 left in the second half. Alabama gets into the paint, kicks it out to Aaron Estrada, wide open, not a UConn defender, within 10 feet of him at the three-point line. He clanks it off the back of the rim, and then at that point, it was game over. I mean, and I'm not saying that if he makes that shot, the game goes any differently. What I will say is they come out of that, tons of momentum. They get the lead in the game, and instead they never led. They never even came close again after that, right? That missed three-pointer, to me, it just felt like this weird swinging point where, hey, Alabama had been making these threes, and that's how they were going to win, or that's how they were going to keep it close. And there was your wide-open three to take the lead with 11:51 left in the game. It clanks off the back of the iron, and then UConn goes on and runs it out from there.
Yeah, momentum is a real thing in these college basketball games. You hit that three, you get the lead. That was the key for me there. As you mentioned, this is a Bama team that hadn't had the lead yet. They needed that lead in the second half to believe that they could beat UConn. And we talked about how UConn did such a good job running them off the three-point line, specifically in the second half. That was a wide open look. It's one of those you really have to knock down if you want to beat a team like UConn, because UConn, I thought, played pretty well in this spot. They didn't have a half like they did against Illinois. They played well, both sides of the ball, both halves. You need to make those type of shots to be able to do it, and you need to believe you can win. And when you have that lead, it gives you more belief in your team.
As we do each and every show, we do have 5 things we're looking forward to betting to today.
All right, classic. High five. It's time for the Handles High Five. High five. All right. Number 1.
Couple of championship games, one today, one tomorrow. Iowa and South Carolina over on the women's side. South Carolina is a 6.5-point favorite. 159.5 is your total there. Over on the men's side, we said it might tick off that 5.5. It actually opened at the 5.5. It just ticked off of it because everyone started betting UConn. It gets to 6 now, UConn. 146 is your total here. We'll talk much more about these games here in the next segment, Mike, as we move on. So let's keep it rolling here with the
number 2.
So a little bit of golf talk and mainly some Masters talk as we head into the latter part of the show here, Mike, because listen, this is Masters week officially now. We are Sunday. If you want to start your, not a business week, but we're going to say this Masters week since it is Sunday. It's Masters week now. A little bit of what's going on over at the Valero. Akshay Bhatia ends up holding on to a 4-stroke lead heading into this. I just let it ride. I'm not hedging. So we'll see. Yeah, I know. We'll see.
Look at you.
I just let it ride. Maybe an in-game hedge if things start to fall off the rails or whatever. But we'll see with all that. But yeah, we'll talk some Masters betting strategy as well, because it is a pretty unique betting event when it comes to the golf calendar. Because unlike all of these other tournaments, it's played at the same place every single year and has been for whatever, and all these guys with experience. So there are things that you can take. It's a pretty sticky course.
Yeah, there are subtle changes to the course every year, but overall, you're playing the same course. It's like playing a member guest, and you're the guest, and you get to play this course once a year. You're not expecting major changes. You understand, like you said yesterday, where to miss shots, so you understand how to stay out of really bad trouble there. And it's also the pressure of it. This is one of the most pressure-packed events, and so people have been able to handle it on this golf course, really have an advantage. And there's a confidence factor here as well, Matt, because it is the same golf course. People who have done well in the past know that they can play well on the weekend at Augusta, and that makes a huge difference.
Let's keep it going.
Number 3.
Hey, Major League Baseball is in full swing. We had a pretty good baseball day yesterday, so we'll see if we can't keep that rocking and rolling here on the show. We'll also talk some baseball with Eric Pauley of the Gold Sheet, so we will see what he thinks about Major League Baseball here in the early part of the season. But Mike, some of these unders were able to hit. We were able to play against the weather. I think I'm going to play with the weather today in a couple of bets that I have. And so watching that stuff early on, and certainly these strikeout props that I think are a little bit inflated, some numbers that I'm going to go after as well. So all in all, pretty good day in Major League Baseball for us.
Yeah, solid day yesterday. It was nice to get both those unders home. We had the one that we had to sweat out with the quick 4 runs.
Yes.
Ended up with 4 as the final. So you're under 8 cash, my under first 5 cash. It was beautiful. Hopefully you have some of the similar luck on the diamond today.
Let's keep it going.
Number 4.
We're going to talk some NBA as well. We're down to the last 4 or 5 games of the season. And as we talked about yesterday, there is some drama as we head into these last 4 or 5 games of the season. Noops Christensen's going to join us a little bit later to give us his thoughts as well. And Mike, it's, for me, I don't know how heavily I'm going to be betting these last 4 or 5 games. Probably just take him in more as a spectator, but I'm sure Noops is going to help us out with some bets to get in our accounts.
Yeah, I'm not going to go crazy here in the last week of the NBA season. However, I am going to start trying to figure out who's going to play each other in the playoffs, because I do love betting series prices in the NBA. Love laying the game and a half in certain situations, like taking dogs and others. So I'm excited to get to the playoffs, because one of the times I do really enjoy betting basketball is betting those series prices in the playoffs.
And final one.
Number 5.
Hey, when you hit the plus money prices over in hockey, hey, you got to like that. 3-0 yesterday from my boy Mike Samich here. On those plus money bets. Now, our horses didn't run fast yesterday, so that's something we got to talk about. Our horses didn't run fast. I didn't win a single trifecta or superfecta yesterday, Mike. Not a single one.
Yeah, not the most wonderful day at the track. The second pick in every single race won. That's always frustrating when your next horse up wins every one of the races. But it was a fun day. I thought we learned a lot from the Kentucky Derby Trail. Can't wait to fade Sierra Leone here on the first Saturday in May. Gonna be the second choice.
We'll get your thoughts on that. Yeah, we'll get your thoughts on that a little bit later as to why that might be a fade. Remember, there are some markets out there where you can bet fixed prices right now. So if you do want to get in, maybe there are some, and maybe Mike can even tip you off on who he's looking at if any of those fixed number prices look appealing right now. When we come back, as we said, let's get into all of these championship games.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Samich on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, there's a pretty big golf tournament coming up this week. Maybe some would even say the biggest of all golf tournaments. And we're going to have a very special Masters edition of VSiN's Long Shot. It's going to be this Tuesday at 11 p.m. Eastern. You can join VSiN. Oh, called me an expert. Look at that. But join VSiN experts Matt Brown. Hey, that's me. Wes Reynolds and Kelly Bidlin as they break down the field, analyze the best bets, uncover hidden long shots like 50-1 Steven Yeager that Wes got at the Houston Open last week. Maybe today a 65-1 and Akshay Bhatia going for the win there as he takes a 4-stroke lead in the final round. So we're going to try to dig up some good bets, some betting strategies as well. And, of course, we'll run through the odds and let you know if anything doesn't really jive with what we think with any of these golfers. So, again, 11 p.m. on Tuesday, VSiN.com/Masters as well for all of the coverage over there, including a betting primer. Matt Brown, Mike Samich. They probably call you a horse racing expert, right? Do you get that in the promos as well?
I do get the horse racing expert tag. There's not that many of us, Matt. Look, horse racing, golf is a little more niche, so you know you get pumped up when you're talking about those sports. I would like your take on this. Yeah. I think the Masters is the second biggest golf tournament. I'm still a U.S. Open guy. Okay. I do love the Masters, but I think the U.S. Open a little bit bigger. What's your say on it?
I mean, probably Masters just from if you walked up to a casual person on the street and you said the Masters, they would know what you were talking about, right? You would have to explain if you said the U.S. Open because there's still a U.S. Open tennis tournament. So, you'd still have to, explain what you even meant by anything. You just say the Masters and people understand what you're talking about. Green jacket, the lush course and trees and whatever and all the tradition and history and all that. So, I think Masters, but I get what you're saying. I mean, you ask some of these guys, if you're watching any of the Full Swing stuff that's over on Netflix, they say outside of winning a major, the Ryder Cup is it, right? Yeah. Even though that being said, that's played played at different places and stuff. So it's hard to that's the other thing I think that's interesting about the Masters is because it's so sticky. It's in Augusta. You know what the course looks like. You know all the stuff that goes on down there. So for me, Masters, but all right, I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you if you say U.S. Open.
Also impossible to get into the Masters. I don't know anybody who ever gets to go to the Masters. I know no one who actually wins the lottery and gets a ticket. Matt, do you know anyone who's going to the Masters?
Yeah. I mean, not from winning the lottery, that's for sure. Not from winning the lottery. I am going to be getting on a flight nice and early on Wednesday morning and heading over to Atlanta. It's Atlanta, Augusta via Atlanta. So here to Atlanta, and you drive over. So going to check that off the old bucket list there. And one of the things I did check off of the bucket list when I was just in college, Mike, was a national championship game in college. It was a The Final Four was held in New Orleans, and this is actually a hack for people. I actually don't know if they still do this or not. So if they do, here's a hack for you, and if they don't, then this is going to be a worthless 30 seconds for you. But they used to sell Final Four tickets in packs, and so we went down there. In the losing team in the Final Four, their fans walk out so dejected, and whenever we were looking to buy championship game tickets off of them, we ended up getting them for free because they were so mad and so upset that their team had just lost. I was like, hey man, what do you want for that? They just threw the booklet at me. And so I ended up going and watching Carmelo Anthony in Syracuse win the national championship down in New Orleans for free. $0.00.
That's a fun one too. That Carmelo Anthony Syracuse team was a phenomenal team too. I remember McNamara, the point guard, as well. I got to see an Elite Eight game and a Sweet 16 game when Duke was in San Diego. It was the exact same thing. My dad was working for Duke at the time, and he couldn't give the tickets away fast enough after they lost to Arizona in the Sweet 16 game. He's like, we're not coming back for the Final Four.
Mike, this is some interesting stuff because we have our opening segment. We have our high five, as we normally do. And then I just left it on the screen as we were going to break and come back to see UConn as 6.5-point favorites over Purdue now. So a half-point tick in our commercial break.
I said it yesterday. I bet the look ahead at 5.5 for UConn because I didn't know how long that was going to last. I don't think we ever see 6 again. I think this is going one direction. I think the public is going to come in on UConn. I think that the sharp players believe that UConn should be a 7-point favorite in this game. If the sharp money is at 7, I think we're going to keep seeing this line move. I mean, I don't think we're going to see buyback until 7.5, 8, Matt. And we'll see how much buyback you even get because the ticket count on UConn is going to be wild. People are going to want to root for UConn in this game. They believe UConn's the better team. 5.5, 6 seems a little bit low when you even just look at the number. It's like they've won by double digits in 11 straight tournament games now, Matt? Yeah. It's hard to get behind Purdue in this spot, plus the 6.5.
We'll circle back to this one here in a second, but let's talk about the game that is today, and that is the women's final, South Carolina and Iowa. 6.5 number there as well in favor of South Carolina. 159.5 is your total. If you think Iowa shocks the world, plus 225 over on the money line. Mike, listen, I don't think either one of us are going to sit here and try to pretend to our audience, our audience that trusts us here, that we are women's college basketball experts or anything. I did listen and read several articles and listen to people who are somewhere along the way. And South Carolina, the best team all season long. And honestly, it seems so incredibly, it seems like a simple handicap for this one. But they're basically saying, like, listen, let Caitlin Clark get all she wants. She's going to get it anyway. Who cares? Just don't let them have a second player that actually scores. So, like, you know what? Who cares if she goes for 41? Who cares if she goes for 45? Just don't let somebody else go for 15, 18 or something like that. And they're basically saying, like, that's all South Carolina has to do in this game. I don't know if the handicap is incredibly simple like that, but that is 4 different people were basically saying, listen, Caitlin Clark's going to get hers anyway. Let her have it. Who cares? Just don't give them a second score.
Yeah, I mean, I already bet this game. I bet South Carolina minus the 6.5 right when it came out. I called a buddy who does bet quite a bit of women's college hoops yesterday, talked to him on the phone for a while, and he's like, look, South Carolina should be a 9-point, maybe 10-point favorite in this spot. And the reason they're not is because Caitlin Clark is the biggest ticket in women's college basketball. And we saw this against LSU, where I thought LSU should have been a short favorite. We saw it against UConn, where UConn is catching 3, probably should have been a pick 'em in that game. And now we see it against the Gamecocks as well, a team which inarguably is better than Iowa. It's just trying to assess how much better. And because you've got Caitlin Clark catching points, you're just not going to get that many people that are casual fans going to the window to bet South Carolina. And you can see that effect in the number here. So I already laid it with South Carolina. I laid the 6.5. I'm trying to figure out how to play some money line South Carolina with some other games today. I played a UConn South Carolina money line parlay already. You can get that right around even money. I love that spot. So to me, there's a lot of different ways to attack this, but all of them are on the South Carolina side.
Yeah, this South Carolina team really did kind of defy the odds. I mean, they're all their players from last season gone, come in and just run the table again this year. One of the interesting things I did hear Caitlin Clark talking about in preparation for the South Carolina team. That's the other thing about this, even though they are teams that you would say, like, air quote, unfamiliar with each other. When you're the number one team in the country, people keep their eye on you and they kind of see what you're up to. And so she said, watched all year long. they mix up their starting lineups. It's never the same 5 people. They're doing all kinds of situational substitutions and all stuff like that. So it's not even a South Carolina team that you can go in and feel super comfortable in prepping for, because apparently they're always shaking things up, always mixing things up. And so that was one of the challenges even for Iowa heading into this one on the quick turnaround.
Yeah, it's a team that they haven't seen before. Like you said, they've obviously followed them. Both these teams know each other from watching games from each other. But South Carolina is able to mix and match depending on who they're playing and set up their lineup in favorable matchups here. You're going to see that against Iowa. And I think your point was an excellent one, Matt. Look, it's Caitlin Clark that has to absolutely go off, but you need a secondary and third scorer if you're Iowa to be able to keep up with the South Carolina team that has depth, that can score in multiple ways, has a large presence on the inside. They're going to be able to dominate Iowa physically in this game. So it's how can Iowa really handle the pressure from that? What are they going to do on the outside? And do you get anyone else who's in double digits? Can you get someone to drop 20? If you can, Iowa has a chance. If Iowa doesn't have anyone who drops 20 here, they're in trouble.
Over on the men's side of things, of course, we know what Edey is able to do, the size advantage that he has, and really just the physical presence. It seems like 20 and 10 is just already written into the box score for him. But in comes UConn, and there is some pretty big guys over there on the UConn side of things. You have Samson Johnson, who stands at 6'10". Of course, you have another 6'10" player who's a young guy, but may or may not rotate in to get a few fouls called against him as well. And then, of course, Donovan Clingan, who's going to step in at 7'2". So as far as the size advantage, sure, Edey is still a very special player, Mike, but there are several UConn bodies that can go in there and bang around with him and are of similar size to him.
Yeah, UConn has fouls to give if they need to. They're able to handle Edey. And I would be surprised if you see many doubles from UConn here. Much like you kind of let Caitlin Clark get hers. Look, if Edey gets 30 in this spot, I still like UConn because I'm not sure where the other points come from Purdue. And if UConn says, okay, look, Edey, you can go ahead, play up man. We'll see how many points you can get, but we're not going to give you open threes. We're not going to let you rotate to the guy who's open because we're double or tripling down on Edey. It's going to make Purdue's life very difficult. We saw NC State be able to slow them down offensively because of that. Purdue not able to shoot the ball all that well. I think you're going to see a similar style here from UConn. And on the offensive end, UConn has advantages all over the floor in my mind. I think this is going to be a very tough matchup for Purdue.
When we come back, going to talk a little Major League Baseball. I did put a couple of bets into my account. By the way, if you're looking out there, Twins Guardians is postponed. Will be made up sometime in August. So if you have DFS lineups or fantasy lineups or something like that, your Twins and Guardians, go ahead and get those guys out of there. Major League Baseball when we come back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summich on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, we know you love that betting splits page, and if you haven't checked it out yet, we're going to let you do it 2 weeks for free. Go to VSiN.com/splits, and when you head over there, you're going to sign up, and VSiN Pro is going to give you the betting splits page absolutely free for 2 weeks. You can go in, you can see where the money and the bets and the handle and all the different things, Mike, are coming in. We always say this is a tool. It is not a cheat code. It is not any of that, but it is a tool, and it is a tool that maybe can open your eyes to something that you were missing somewhere along the way.
Yeah, it's great for baseball as well. I like watching to see where the money is coming in, where the percentage of bets are coming in on some of these baseball games, trying to anticipate line moves so that you're trying to figure out where you're on the right side. But it's not an end-all be-all, but it's a nice thing to kind of give yourself a second look at a game or to kind of reaffirm what your opinion may be.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things where I've been going in, and if I see a game that is getting a ton of action, and for whatever reason I completely wrote the game off, it will at least make me pay attention and go in and say, like, is there something that I missed in this one? Why is this going this way? Why is this going this way? Or is this creating value maybe on the other side of this because some people are going crazy on this one way, and so maybe I can come in and take advantage of it on the other side. So again, it is a tool. Be sure and use it as a tool.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you see 80% of the bets, 85% of the money in a baseball line is moved 40 cents. You're like, well, is that maybe too aggressive? Maybe we should come back the other side a little bit here.
Yeah. That's what we're. And as we said, guys, if you're playing fantasy out there, anything, Twins Guardians going to be postponed, so get that one off of your card. But Mike, right out of the gate here, Blue Jays and Yankees, that's coming to you in about an hour. This is Bowden Francis and Luis Gil that are going at it. It is minus 162 in favor of the Yankees at home over the Blue Jays, plus 136 on the Jays on the road. 8 is your total. Jays haven't been able to really figure it out quite yet, haven't been able to get it going. And you even mentioned it yesterday. Bichette really has been kind of a hole in this lineup so far, and it's tough whenever your 2-3 hole guy is just not hitting the ball at all, and that's kind of where we're at right now with this team. That being said, we still got our strikeout prop home yesterday on the under because they're hitting it. They're just not hitting it for hits, Mike, so that's okay. We'll take that. And so Luis Gil, guy is phenomenal. I mean, has really electric stuff, but they set his strikeout prop at 7.5. Like 8 strikeouts in today's Major League Baseball, specifically early on in the season with the pitch count stuff that we have on all these guys and the workload stuff that we're trying to do. And also, doesn't hurt that this guy is coming off. He missed nearly all of 2023 with coming back from Tommy John. He didn't even make any Major League appearances. He came back towards the end of the year and did some spring training stuff last year in 2023. So 2024 is actually his first real game competition since the Tommy John stuff too. So this guy's they're not going to let him go the 90, 95 pitches and stuff like that. And if you are racking up a bunch of strikeouts, you're also racking up a bunch of pitches as well. And so for me, the under 7.5 strikeouts on Luis Gil, it was just way, way, way too high. So one of the first bets I put in last night as soon as this hit.
Yeah, I like the look. He threw 81 pitches in his first start. So like you said, not really getting the leash to be able to throw 100, 105 pitches, which what it might take to be able to get to the 7.5 strikeouts. You mentioned Bichette and Guerrero. We talked about them yesterday, both hitting under 200. That's not going to cut it. However, I was on the Blue Jays yesterday, plus 100, one of the few losses we had in the baseball world there. They started to get it going a little bit toward the second half of that game. We saw the Blue Jays put up 8 yesterday. Guerrero gets his first home run. Bichette had a couple hits. Interesting to see how this lineup responds today. I kind of like the over here, sitting at 8. Not a ton of love for me for Francis, and I'm not sure how deep Gil goes into this game. So if I played anything here, I like your strikeout prop, but I would take the over 8 as well.
Let's head to the Dodgers and the Cubs. This is Gavin Stone, and we got a manga going over there for the Cubs. This is minus 120 in favor of the Dodgers on the road over the Cubs. Even money on the Cubs there. 8.5 is our total. Hey, Wrigley wind blowing in, Mike. It got a stayed under for us yesterday. It is one of the things, the first thing I look for whenever the Cubs are playing at home. What is that wind doing at Wrigley? If it's going out, we're going over. It's going in, we're going to stay under a lot of times. What are we looking at here in this one for you?
Lean toward the under here, but look, I took the Dodgers minus 110 when this opened. I'd still play it here at minus 118. I think there's value up to about minus 125. So we're starting to push the outside edge of the value here. Amaga, one of the key offseason acquisitions for this Cubs team. One of the pitchers that came over from Japan, not as good as Yamamoto we saw for the Dodgers yesterday, but still a very good pitcher. However, the lineup discrepancy here is greater than what I believe the pitching discrepancy is. I understand the Cubs have a slight edge on the pitching side, but the lineup edge here massively toward the Dodgers, especially with the wind blowing in, where you need hitters who are able to consistently get singles, get doubles down the line. Hard hit baseballs make a big difference. That's a huge advantage toward this Dodgers lineup. So I laid the minus 110 with the Dodgers here. I do agree with you, wind blowing in. I would lean toward the under as well, but I like the Dodgers side a little bit more.
My second one that made the card today, and actually second and third and fourth ended up making the card today, is in this White Sox and Royals game. We rarely see winds sustained of 20 miles an hour blowing out with gusts up to 32 miles an hour blowing out to left center. But that's what we have today over in Kansas City. We have Garrett Crochet on the hill for the White Sox and Alec Marsh for the Royals. Crochet actually looked really good for the White Sox in his opening start. That being said, sometimes you just can't really battle the elements here with all this, Mike. And so I played the yes run first inning in this one. I also played a couple of home run props. Both of these pitchers are fly ball pitchers as it is anyway, when we're given kind of the scale of how we measure it, right, on like percentage wise of fly balls to ground balls to line drives. Like these guys skew on the fly ball side of things anyway, which obviously doesn't pair very well with 20 mile an hour sustained winds and 30 mile an hour gusts. And so I played yes home run on Michael Garcia. He's actually hitting leadoff in this one, so we're gonna get a ton of chances here on the Royals side against Crochet. Not a huge power guy, but he has taken it deep a couple of times so far this year. And then over on the other side on the White Sox, I played yes on Andrew Vaughn at plus 450. Marsh is even more extreme of a fly ball pitcher on this one. And honestly, guys just never go opposite field on him either. He only gives up opposite field contact about 17% of the time. And so with a right-handed batter in Vaughn, we're going to be trying to pull this thing to left center as it is with that wind. And no, guys just don't go opposite field on Marsh as it is anyway. So I actually ended up with 3 bets in this one on a yes run first inning. Michael Garcia, yes home run at plus 550. And then Andrew Vaughn, yes home run at plus 450.
I love it. I love that we got a Yerfie here at 11:10 a.m. Pacific time. So it's going to be during the show. We're going to get to root for the Yerfie. I love that. It only could have been better if I was in the studio. Get the game up there, get those instant reactions. I kind of like the over in this game with the wind blowing out and 2 pitchers that like to throw fly balls. That seems like a pretty bad recipe to try and stay under 9 runs. However, you don't have the most
not the most potent lineups.
That would be the one.
White Sox are pretty terrible, actually. So that's the only thing that kept me off it. It's just like, man, that lineup is bad.
No bueno. Yeah, no bueno.
Let's go to the Red Sox here.
Yeah, I laid it with the Red Sox today as well. Laid the minus 115 in the spot. Producer Steph going to be excited. Look. Houck is one of those guys I'm interested in backing consistently here for the Red Sox. He's a younger pitcher. He was a top prospect. He started to come around a little bit late last season. He's pitched well so far this year, 1-0 right now in the young season. And look who we're facing. It's the lowly Angels, and we're only laying minus 115. We've got a pitching edge. The lineups to me are neutral or a slight edge to Boston here. I think minus 115 is more than a fair price, so we're going to lay it with the Red Sox today, Matt. Yeah,
Tanner Houck is a guy that I kind of have my eye on as well this season, mainly from what will he look like midseason from a strikeout prop perspective and all that. Guy's got really good stuff. And as you mentioned, seems like he started to figure it out a little bit, And so did he actually figure it out? We will see. Might end up a guy that ends up on my card several times as we move forward through the course of the season. We got the Diamondbacks and the Braves coming to you here in about an hour as well. And you went ahead and played the Braves at home here. Chris Sale on the hill for the Braves. Ryan Nelson for the Diamondbacks. The Braves are huge, minus 250 home favorites here.
Yeah, I'm looking for creative ways to play the Braves, specifically this offense, when I think they have a positive pitching matchup. And I feel like that's what they've got again today with Ryan Nelson on the hill for Arizona. You could take the first 5. So first 5 innings, team total Braves over 2.5. That was the look I found here. I want to take the Ryan Nelson innings. I want to isolate them. I think they're going to be able to get to him early. So I'll take the Braves team total first 5 innings over 2.5 runs.
All right, man. We'll go in there with a little Braves up. By the way, I do want to watch this and see what Chris Sale looks like as well, especially considering the news that we got yesterday. Spencer Strider, it was a UCL injury for him. They just put him on the 15-day DL, but we know, Mike, these UCL injuries never end up great. And so thought it was interesting that they started blaming the pitch clock for the elbow injuries with all of this, but we shall see. Final bet on the card, Mets and Reds for you.
Yeah, I'll go to the Mets and the Reds game here. And this was, we're going to go back to the well on the under first 5 innings. Abbott pitching for the Reds, one of the pitchers that I'm interested in backing. We got Mena starting for the Mets as well. The Mets offense is absolutely atrocious. This Reds team still hasn't hit the baseball like we saw them hit it last year. I think this is an advantage for both of the pitchers, and you're getting 4.5 for the first 5. So we're going to go under 4.5 first 5 Mets Reds here.
We're going to keep checking off all of these sports here, Mike. We're going to go to NBA next on the Progressive Guest Line. We're going to get Noops Christensen joining us. He's an NBA analyst over at FTN Bets and see what he has for these last few days of the season and maybe some storylines that we can carry into the postseason as well. Is there a bet to be made on the futures market? We will be sure and ask him that as well when we come back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summich on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you do not already have a DraftKings Sportsbook account, head to the App Store, download the DraftKings Sportsbook, and when you do make that first deposit, use promo code VSiN, VSIN. Make a $5 bet on any basketball game. We're going to give you $150 instantly in bonus bets. It's as easy as that. Go in, download the DraftKings Sportsbook for new customers. Use the promo code VSiN, make that deposit, and make at least a $5 bet, and we're going to give you $150 instantly in bonus bets. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Matt Brown, Mike Somich, coming to you here on a Sunday, coming off of the Final Four, getting ready for a couple of championship games. We've already ticked off a couple of sports here on the show. We set a record yesterday on the program with the amount of sports that we talked about. Even got into some cricket, I believe, yesterday here on the program. But let's get to the NBA. Noops Christensen going to be joining us here, NBA analyst over at FTN Bets. Noops, you were talking a little bit before the segment began. Mike wanted to get into all of the big picture talk here, but let's talk a couple of your bets for the day, and then we can start talking some of that stuff. And go ahead straight to the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Charlotte Hornets. This is sitting right now, Thunder as 9-point road favorites. 219 is the total in this one, and you are looking at that total.
Yeah, I think that's a tick too high. I've got a little closer to 214, 215. The Oklahoma City Thunder without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, still a very good to elite defensive team, but struggle offensively. We'll see if Jalen Williams is in. If he is, that does make the Thunder offense a little bit better. I would maybe add another point to what my projection is. But again, I'm still at least 3 points under this number. Charlotte has just been brutal, whether it be injuries, the overall lack of talent. There's really only 3 or 4 NBA level guys and only one or two that can really create any offense. And we've seen it. You go and look over the last month, their scores are littered with double digits in a league where everyone is scoring 115, 120 every night. So I think this is a comfortable Thunder blowout regardless of who plays. And I just don't think we're going to see a lot of points here. Oklahoma City, happy to grind it out on the road. Give me the under.
Noops, one of the games I'm most excited to watch today, we've got in San Antonio here, you've got the 76ers headed in to take on the Spurs. I'm so happy Embiid's back for this one. You get to see Embiid and Wembanyama. You've got a play coming from this one. We've seen Wembanyama drop down to 10-1 as Defensive Player of the Year as well. A ton of momentum. Going to be an interesting spot for him against Embiid in this spot. Who do you like?
Yeah, kudos to anybody that has a Wembanyama ticket, but that's just going to be another really nice piece of equity that doesn't win. Rudy Gobert is going to be your Defensive Player of the Year, but this is going to be a really exciting matchup. We saw what Wembanyama did against Jokic in their last game, and it's one of the reasons we like Wembanyama so much. He understands what's at stake. He seems to be the first player since really LeBron James that is not just prepared to play basketball, but prepared to take on the burden of being a star player. As for the game itself, there's a really nice angle here. One of my favorite angles every season. In the first quarter, you want to play bad teams at home against the spread in the first quarter, especially against good teams. For whatever reason, whether it be the good teams just don't focus as much on the road. They're happy to start a little bit slow, knowing they can catch up later. It's been an angle all year, and for the last couple seasons for me, and San Antonio is no exception. They're one of the best first quarter teams in the league. Again, especially at home. They're plus 1.5 here. I have that spread closer to half a point. Give me the Spurs early in the first quarter.
Let's head to the Jazz and the Warriors, and I'm glad you're playing some totals today. A lot of times we get in people on here, all they want to do, they just want to play some spreads here, but you're looking at another total here. You're looking at this Jazz-Warriors total.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've got 13 games today, 14 on Tuesday. Some are going to be real stinkers, and this might be one. The Golden State Warriors have all but locked up the 10th seed. They would have to lose every single game for the rest of the season. The Rockets would have to win every single game for the rest of the season. That's not going to happen. The Warriors know that. You've seen them start to lower minutes for some of these veteran guys, which, again, really limits what they can do offensively. And one of my favorite parts about the Warriors is Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, the Splash Brothers. Everybody thinks about them as an offensive team. When they're good, it's through defense. Those championship teams are some of the best defensive units we've seen in the history of basketball. And when they're playing well like they are now, it really is through the defense and what Draymond Green can do. And no easier team to defend, really, than the Utah Jazz on the road here. No advantage from the altitude. No Jordan Clarkson. No John Collins. No Lauri Markkanen. And that leaves Collins, Sexton, Keontae George, and not really much in the way of scoring talent here. So give me the under.
Yeah, we've seen the rules changes since the All-Star break, specifically the whistles not being blown as much. That's really favored Draymond Green. Been a great for his defensive style of the game. We'll look to the under there in the Jazz Warriors. Now, the last game of the night, you've got the Timberwolves, who are still in contention for the number 1 overall seed in the West, taking on the Lakers, who are down in that playoff world. Who do you like in this spot?
Yeah, very surprised here to see the Lakers as favorites. The Timberwolves have gotten bet. They continue to be bet, and I think they should. I have Minnesota as a short favorite here, even on the road. They match up very well against the Lakers. Los Angeles is used to using physicality, their size, to really beat these teams up, control the pace, control the boards. There is no team bigger than the Minnesota Timberwolves. There is no team better defensively and better at controlling the boards than the Timberwolves. I think the matchup favors them. Anthony Edwards should be able to score almost at will here. And again, we don't don't know. I imagine LeBron James and Anthony Davis are going to play, but both are questionable. And if we get lucky and even one is out, this number is going to flip pretty quickly. Again, even if both play, I still have Minnesota favored. Give me the underdog. Play the money line if you like. I think that's a perfectly fine line there, plus 105, but plus 1.5, plus 2. Again, plus anything in front of Minnesota is a good bet, in my opinion.
Oops, this isn't a game that's on your card, but a game that obviously is really important. We have the Suns and the Pelicans playing, and we know where the Suns and the Pelicans currently sit in the playoff landscape of things. More your overall picture of both of these teams, and if you did have any thoughts at all about the game today.
Yeah, they played against each other. I think it's about a week ago at this point. And what I wrote about my piece, Hoops with Noops at FTN Bets, was that this was a good example of why I have a model. From a basketball perspective, my gut thinks that the Pelicans should be able to thrash this Phoenix Suns team. Phoenix, not only are they bad defensively, they can't rebound, and they're bad at the rim. That means Valanciunas and Zion Williamson should be able to do more or less whatever they choose to. But as we saw in that game, because Phoenix is happy to play slow, they can really focus on rebounding. If Zion Williamson, who's questionable tonight, is out, I think this actually is a pretty good matchup for Phoenix. Overall, I like the Pelicans. If they can get Brandon Ingram back, if Zion could be healthy, they are a really scary team in the first round. Phoenix, I'm probably going to be betting against Phoenix no matter whom they play. I just really struggle to see this team that relies on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, scoring 80 points, 75 points combined every night to be successful. So not really sure what to do with that game. Lean New Orleans if Zion can play. Long term, I'll probably be on the Pelicans in the playoffs. I'll be fading Phoenix.
The Eastern Conference is all but wrapped up here. We've got the Celtics way up on everybody else, currently a 14-game lead in the conference. Matt's always giving away Matt Bucks, so I'm going to give away some Matt Bucks today to you, Noobs. If I gave you 100 Matt Bucks and you had to bet someone in the East, but it can't be the Celtics, who are you going to play to come out of the East?
Feels like a setup. Maybe you guys already knew I was a Philadelphia 76ers fan, but I have to do that. I mean, you start to look at this Eastern Conference, there is nothing but question marks. The Boston Celtics are a great team. They're going to finish with one of the best regular seasons since the Kevin Durant Warriors. But we've seen time and time again that they struggle at the end of games. We've even seen it recently. For whatever reason, Tatum and Brown, that offense that moves the ball and looks really beautiful at points, struggles in big moments. So I'm looking for a spot to go against them. The Bucks, you can't trust Glenn Rivers. He has taught us time and time again that he will find a way to fail in the postseason with great teams. The Knicks are too beat up. The Cavaliers look just like a mess at this point. And you continue to go further down the board. There's not really a team that sticks out. Orlando's a little too young. Then there's the Sixers. You have this terrifying team where if Embiid is healthy, Maxey is healthy, you've got two dynamic players, two guys that can dominate games. They have depth. They have a very good coach. And I think that number's ticked out a little too big. So not just as a 76ers fan, but also as someone that likes to find value, I think the Sixers are the play in the East at this point.
I like that. There we go, Mike. That's some good use to the Matt Bucks right there, is taking the Sixers if it's not on the Celtic side of things. Well, let's do this kind of same exercise in the West. What team outside of the obvious choices in, say, the Nuggets and Wolves and Thunder, is there a team at all? You already kind of tipped your hand, I guess, that you don't like the Suns a ton. What about the Clippers? What about the Mavs? Is there any of these teams in the play-in that maybe you would trust come playoff time?
Well, I have to throw out the caveat. They're all going to lose to the Nuggets. The Nuggets are winning the championship. I've said it all year. I will continue to say it. However, I think the Pelicans are really scary. It's a deep team. Zion is finally healthy and starting to play well. They can do a lot of different things. I think that's interesting. But the Mavericks have to be the scariest team. NBA playoff basketball is all about the best player on the floor. Luka Doncic has a chance to be the best player on the floor in any game, in any series. Again, deep team. They finally have two centers that can rebound and play in the pick and roll. Kyrie and Luka have played fantastic together, and you have 4 to 6 other guys that can be wings, big guys. They could all shoot. It's really coming together in Dallas. I just wonder if maybe it's next year and not this season.
He is Noops Christensen. You can find his great work over at FTN Bets. You can find him on the Twitter machine at _Noops. That is Noops. Noops, thanks for the time, man. Appreciate it, and good luck.
My pleasure, guys. Happy to be here. Best of luck until we talk again.
Man, you gave my Matt Bucks away, and then a bet got placed on the 76ers with the Matt Bucks there. Mike, what do you think about that?
I don't hate it. I mean, you look at the East, and he broke it down pretty well. Like, I want no part of this Cavs team. I want no part of this Bucks team. The Knicks are too banged up. The Pacers don't play any defense. To me, it's like, he mentioned the Magic. They are a little bit too young. Could they actually make a run, though, win 1 or 2 series? And then after that, it's the 76ers and it's the Celtics. So really a 3-horse race there. I don't hate the idea of taking the 76ers at a big price. They might get the Celtics in round 1, too. Like, that's the other interesting part here. They're 7 or 8.
Good news, bad news when we come back here on The Handle.